this is Stuff You Like. It's time for my second patron requested episode, and you guys, the turtle moves. So let's head back to the Discworld, where the little things matter. Small Gods is the 13th book in the Discworld series, published in 1992, and the plot, it goeth thusly. Brutha is a novice priest of the bull-horned god Om. Holy horns. And also the possessor of a memory that's completely accurate. He can't read, he's widely regarded as a bit thick, and he's going to be a novice priest forever, but unlike absolutely everyone else in the country of Omnia, he really believes in Om. Nobody else does. They believe in the church, they believe in the structures, they believe in the Quisition, who are not nice people, but they don't believe in Om. Which is why, though he intended to turn himself into a bull or a swan or something for a couple of weeks, the great god Om has found himself as a tortoise for the last 3 years. So he finds Brutha, his last believer, and together they have all kinds of wacky adventures, including journeying to Ephebe, which is not at all ancient Greece, and also through the desert, which is not at all symbolic. The climax of the book is Om's glorious return to power, the defeat of Exquisitor Vorbis, veterinary if veterinary had no conscience, and the beginning of a golden age for the country of Omnia. And all because of Brutha, who truly believes, but is also a truly good and noble person. So much of Pratchett, and Discworld in particular, is about how to be a good and human person, and how to see others as good and human people, and how the big things in life are made up of lots of little things, so it's best to pay attention to those little things. But the thing that stops it from being really preachy is how most of the characters doing that learning aren't actually human themselves. One thing I love about Discworld is that everyone is people, even gods who find themselves temporarily betortoised. The other gods, the more important gods, they are people too, but detached people who play dice with the universe and don't really care about the lives down on the disc. They're kind of meaningless to them. And so Om's arc over the course of the book is learning that other people are really real and that actions have consequences and that maybe gods should obey the rules that they set down for their believers. And Om's arc is the most significant and fleshed out one in Small Gods. Brutha and Om are the classic buddy cop pairing. Brutha is the wide-eyed idealist whose optimism and integrity can't be damped. Om is the former great god who just wants things to go back to the way they were. Om starts out cynical and desperate and godlike in the Greek god sense of not really caring about anyone, but by the end he basically starts a barroom brawl in Cori Celesti so that Omnia doesn't have to go to war with its neighbours. Om becomes a lot more human, and the disc is better for it. But this is a Discworld novel, so it's funny and sharp as well as touching, and it's pretty good at the subtle references. Om, for example, has 512 commandments, and he spoke to the great prophet in the desert as a pillar of flame. Or he might have done. He doesn't really remember. 3 years as a tortoise will do that to you. And of course the climax of the novel has Brutha chained to a metal turtle waiting to die, but he doesn't, because this is not that kind of story. Lutze sees to that. Speaking of Lutze, the supporting characters, who also include Ephebian philosophers, are wonderful, but the main trio of Brutha, Om and Vorbis is where Pratchett really shines. Om becoming a more human and compassionate god through his experiences on Earth is the main character arc of the story, like I said. The other two don't change in the same way, but that is a good thing. Brutha couldn't be the main arc in the story because him changing significantly would make the story less satisfying and not more so. He starts as a cinnamon roll and he ends as a cinnamon roll, albeit an older, wiser and deafer cinnamon roll. And Vorbis has barely any arc at all in that he travels through the book learning nothing and gaining naff all in the way of insight. Nothing about Vorbis actually changes until his death. But then he is left alone in the desert of the afterlife with nothing but his own thoughts for company. And of course, the horror that those thoughts inspire, because Vorbis never heard Om, he just heard his own thoughts reflected back at him. Brutha gets smarter, plans better, ends up being the head of the entire church and the prophet of prophets, but really, he doesn't change in the most fundamental way. In the middle of the book, shipwrecked Brutha carries and then guides Vorbis through the desert towards Omnia, and Vorbis bides his time and then betrays Brutha, knocks him out, takes him back to Omnia, and eventually orders him beaten and executed. That Brutha doesn't die is a testament to Om actually doing something, at high speed from a great height, but even so Brutha's last words to Vorbis are, "I'm sorry." 100 years later, Brutha comes across Vorbis in the desert of the afterlife, and takes him along with him again. He was a murderer, and a creator of murderers. Yes, I know. He's Vorbis. But I'm me. The genius of Vorbis as a villain is that the scariest thing about him is how he twists people into becoming copies of himself. That is his power, and it is absolutely terrifying. But it does not work on Brutha, and that's important. Brutha carries him through the desert towards Omnia and is betrayed. Brutha finds him in the desert of the afterlife and takes him along again. And that refusal to change, that stubborn clinging to goodness and faith, is Brutha's real power. Never mind the eidetic memory. In 100 years, we'll all be dead. But here and now, we are alive. However cynical some of his characters might be, however sharp his insights into the weaknesses of the human condition, Terry Pratchett believed in us. He believed that human beings were capable of being really, truly good, and that the good that we were capable of could change the world. Even if we need a little divine intervention, or maybe a strategically placed compost heap to help us get there. Thanks for watching this episode of Stuff You Like. If you'd like to support the show, you can click on the link to go to my Patreon. If you'd like science, you can click on my face to go to my new channel. And regardless, I'll see you next time.